The first thing I noticed was the dress. It was red, the kind of red that makes you look twice, even if you're not supposed to. The second thing I noticed? She wasn't wearing her wedding ring. And just like that, Thursday night turned into a stomachache. She didn't say much, just grabbed her purse, slipped on heels she hadn't touched in years, and looked at me like I was blocking the hallway. I wasn't. I was just standing there, like an idiot, like a husband who still believed in date nights, mutual respect, and asking questions like, "Where are you going dressed like that?" without being accused of being controlling. She beat me to it. "Don't start, Dean. It's just dinner. I need air. I'll make it up later." Later. Always later. We've been married 12 years. We have the same fridge, the same mortgage, and the same tired conversations about picking up the dry cleaning and who forgot to buy eggs. And now, suddenly, she needs air? In stilettos? She didn't wait for me to respond. Just walked out the door like it wasn't even a door, like it was an exit sign she'd been staring at for months. And me? I stood there like a malfunctioning robot. Mouth open, thoughts scrambled, pulse loud enough to hear in my ears. I didn't chase her. I didn't yell. I didn't even ask who the dinner was with. I just whispered. I warned you. Not to her, to myself. Because we'd had this fight before. I'd seen the way she flinched at routine. The way she stared at her phone when I spoke. The way she started dressing for work like she was going to auditions. But this time she chose it. She chose to make a statement. And I don't know what hurt more, the act itself, or how calm she was doing it. So I sat in the living room. Didn't touch the food. Didn't turn on the TV. Just stared at her empty coffee mug like it had answers. By 9:23 p.m., she still wasn't home. By 9:58, I'd opened her laptop. I know. I shouldn't have. But I did. Because curiosity in marriage isn't a sin, secrecy is. There was an email. Subject line: "Can't wait to see you again, smirking face." Sender: Eli Baldwin. Not Eli from accounting. Not Eli the cousin. Not Eli the family friend. Just Eli, a man with a face I didn't know and confidence I never had. The thread went deep. Weeks of planning. Mentions of how her husband won't do anything. Mentions of what she was going to wear. Mentions of tonight. I should have felt rage. I should have lost it. But instead, I laughed. Quiet, broken laughter. Because even after all this, I still believed she'd come home and pretend like nothing happened. And she did. At 11:12 p.m. Hair messy. Lipstick faded. Eyes wide when she saw me standing by the door with her laptop in one hand and my wedding ring in the other. She opened her mouth to speak. But this time, I didn't wait. I handed her the ring. And said, "You said you'd make it up later." But later just ended. She just stood there. Mouth slightly open. Hands clutched around her purse like it was going to protect her from what was coming. Her mascara had smudged under one eye. Her lipstick was smeared at the corner of her mouth. And her face wasn't guilty. It was surprised. Like I had betrayed her by not playing dumb like usual. "I don't understand," she said finally, her voice too calm. "What is this? Are you being dramatic again?" I nearly laughed. Again. That word. Dramatic. For 12 years, every time I raised a concern, expressed a feeling, pointed out something that hurt, I was being dramatic. My silence wasn't weakness. It was self-defense. I didn't answer her. I just set the laptop on the table, still open to Eli's email. Her eyes flicked to it, then back to me. She didn't deny it. She didn't even try to lie. Instead, she rolled her eyes. Rolled her eyes like I was a child who found a present early before Christmas. "You went through my stuff, Dean. That's not okay." Not okay? Not okay? This woman just came back from a dinner date with a man I didn't know existed 24 hours ago. And I was the villain because I opened the laptop she left unlocked on the kitchen counter? I stepped closer. Not threatening. Just tired. My voice came out hoarse. "How long?" She didn't answer. "How long, Marla?" "Dean, it's not like that." "How long?" A long, brittle pause. Then she said it, barely above a whisper. 6 months. And that was it. 6 months of stolen messages. Of make-up sex I didn't know was guilt-driven. Of her coming home late smelling like hotel soap. Of me thinking I just wasn't enough anymore. Of her letting me believe that. I remember my knees felt like they were about to give out. I leaned on the back of a chair, but I didn't cry. I wish I had. I wish I could have sobbed or screamed or broken something like they do in the movies. But all I did was whisper, "I would have forgiven you if you just told me the truth." And she had the audacity to look sad. I didn't want to hurt you. I nodded. Slow. Mechanical. So instead you just broke me in slow motion. That hit her. For the first time, she looked like something cracked behind her eyes. But I didn't care anymore. I walked right past her and went to the bedroom. I didn't slam the door. I didn't lock it. I just packed a duffel bag with the basics, a few shirts, socks, my chargers, my meds. I grabbed my old laptop, my keys, and the last shreds of self-respect I had left. She followed me halfway down the hallway. Dean, she said, where are you going? I zipped the bag. You said you needed air, so I'm giving it to you. She reached for my arm. I stepped back. I made a mistake, she whispered. No, Marla. A mistake is forgetting to pick up milk. What you did was a decision. Repeated, premeditated, and protected with lies. Then I walked out. I expected tears. I expected some kind of meltdown or screaming or begging. But she just stood there, frozen, like she thought this was still some kind of bluff. Like I'd be back in an hour. Like I always was. But not this time. And I had no idea that walking out that door would be the beginning of a chain reaction that would flip her entire life upside down in less than 48 hours. Because someone else was already watching. And they had their own score to settle with her. I checked into a motel that night. The kind with flickering parking lot lights and a front desk guy who didn't care enough to ask questions. I paid in cash, used a fake name for the receipt, not because I needed to, but because I suddenly felt like disappearing had to be thorough. I sat on the edge of the bed staring at the cheap curtains, still clutching the wedding ring in my palm. It was like a metal splinter. Too small to make noise, too painful to ignore. I tried sleeping. I couldn't. My mind kept looping that red dress, the missing ring, the smudged lipstick. I kept hearing her voice, that cold, practiced, don't start, Dean. Sometime around 2 a.m., I checked my email, mostly out of habit. And that's when I saw it. Subject line, she's not telling you everything. No sender name, just a burner Gmail address. I opened it. Inside was a single sentence. If you want the full picture, ask her about May 19th, room 407, Harborview Inn. I blinked. My heart did this weird hiccup thing. May 19th. That was 5 months ago. I remember it because it was the night I flew home from my sister's hospital stay early, just to surprise Marla with dinner, and she'd texted saying she had to work late. I'd believed her. I'd even felt guilty for getting annoyed when she didn't answer the phone. Now this. I sat back. My first instinct was to delete it, just some troll, maybe Eli himself, trying to stir the pot. But the specific room number, the date, it didn't feel random. So the next morning, I called Harborview Inn. Told them I was reviewing an old credit card charge. They asked for the date. I gave it. The woman on the phone paused, then said, room 407 was booked under a Marla Benton. One night stay. Checked in around 6:15 p.m. My throat closed. She hadn't even bothered using a fake name. I asked if someone else was listed under the reservation. The woman hesitated, then quietly said, there was a second guest. Eli Baldwin. But I'm not technically supposed to disclose that. That was all I needed. I ended the call and stared at the motel ceiling for a full hour. Not because I didn't know what to do, but because for the first time, I realized I wasn't angry anymore. I was something worse. I was done. And yet, I still didn't know who sent the email. That answer came later that day, when I stopped by a coffee shop across town, the kind of place Marla would have called hipster garbage. I went there to breathe, just to feel like a normal human in a room full of strangers. But when I turned to grab sugar for my coffee, a man was standing behind me. Tall, mid-40s, leather jacket, sharp eyes. You're Dean, right? He asked, like he already knew. I froze. Who's asking? He smiled. Not friendly, not aggressive, just knowing. Let's sit. I think we have a few things to talk about. My first thought? Run. But my feet didn't move. Something about him felt familiar in the worst way, like an echo of a bad memory. We sat at a corner table. He introduced himself without flinching. My name's Bryce. I'm Eli's brother. That was the last name I expected to hear, and definitely the last person I thought would track me down. What do you want from me? I asked. He leaned forward. I want you to know that Eli. He's not who your wife thinks he is. And whatever game she's playing, she's about to lose. I didn't say anything. I just stared. He continued. Eli's already married, Dean. Has a wife. 2 kids. Lives in Seattle. The guy's been pulling this kind of thing for years, charming married women, making them feel seen, wanted, excited again. then wrecking them and ghosting. I warned him to stop. He didn't listen. So now, I'm warning you. I didn't know whether to punch him or shake his hand. He slid a small envelope across the table. Inside were 2 photos. One of Marla and Eli entering room 407. One of them kissing in the hotel lobby, time-stamped May 19th, 8:47 p.m. And then Bryce stood, looked me in the eye, and said something that chilled me to my bones. She thinks she can control the fallout. She has no idea what's coming. And then he walked out. Just like that. I sat there holding those photos, the ring still in my pocket, and realized this wasn't just a betrayal. It was a setup for something much bigger. I didn't go back to the motel after meeting Bryce. I drove around for hours, replaying every memory with Marla like it was part of some twisted documentary. Except now, the narrator was gone and I was just watching it in silence. Every birthday, every inside joke, every "I love you" whispered before bed, I questioned all of it. And yet, I wasn't breaking. Not yet. What haunted me most wasn't the affair. It was how casual she was about it. How she walked out that door and read like it was just another errand. Like she didn't leave behind a man who built 12 years of his life around her. But now, I had something she didn't know I had. The photos, the date, the name Bryce, and her lie about working late on May 19th. That one stuck with me like glass in my throat. So I tested something. I texted her, "Do you remember May 19th? When I flew home early to surprise you?" She replied 5 minutes later, casual as ever. Of course. I felt so bad canceling dinner that night. Stupid deadline. Why? 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 Because you were in bed with Eli Baldwin while I was standing outside Olive Garden with a bouquet of lilies, Marla. That's why. But I didn't say it. Not yet. Instead, I replied, just thinking. That was the first night I felt like I'd lost you. And she wrote back, "You didn't. I promise." That was the moment I knew she was going to lose everything. Because she didn't just lie once. She was still lying now, smooth, easy, practiced. I needed to be sure. So I did something I swore I'd never do. I called Eli's office. He worked at a marketing firm downtown. I told the receptionist I was a potential client looking for Eli Baldwin. She paused. "I'm sorry. Mr. Baldwin's no longer with us." My heart jumped. "Oh, when did he leave?" She hesitated. "Officially? Last Friday. But, off the record, it was sudden. There was some kind of complaint. HR's handling it." Sudden. Complaint. Gone. I thanked her and hung up. And just like that, the game changed. Eli had vanished, but Marla was still pretending everything was fine. She had no idea the man she cheated with was under investigation. She had no idea his brother had come to me with photos. And she definitely had no idea I'd already forwarded those photos to someone else. Her best friend. And that was just the beginning. Marla's best friend, Janelle, was the kind of woman who never liked me much. She smiled through clenched teeth, called me dependable like it was an insult, and never missed a chance to compare me to her own husband, who wore too much cologne and always found a way to mention his golf handicap. But Janelle? She also hated liars. I remembered that from the time she ghosted a friend group over one of them stealing her sunglasses. If she was willing to detonate a 10-year friendship over designer lenses, I figured this might shake her, too. I didn't say much when I messaged her. Just sent the photos Bryce gave me and typed. If she lied to me for 6 months, what makes you think she told you the truth? She saw it instantly. No typing bubble. No response. Just read. And then silence. I figured that was it. Maybe she'd pretend she didn't see it. Maybe she'd call Marla. Maybe they'd laugh about me being pathetic. But 5 hours later, my phone rang. Unknown number. I picked up. It was Janelle. Her voice wasn't smug. It was quiet. Flat. Almost shaking. "Dean," she said, "I don't even know where to start." I didn't say anything. I just let her talk. She told me things I hadn't even asked for. Like how Marla had once joked about being bored. How she'd made comments about wondering what it would be like to be with someone who didn't need permission to take charge. How she started defending Eli before even mentioning his name in passing. That subtle grooming of her friend's approval in case things ever got exposed. But then Janelle's voice dropped lower. "There's something else," she said. "I wasn't sure whether to tell you, but I think you need to know." I braced myself. Eli wasn't the only one. My chest went cold. "What do you mean?" "I mean he wasn't the first. He might not even be the last. Dean," she told me once, during a wine night, that she feels trapped. That she stayed with you because it was safe. and that sometimes she just wants to feel dangerous again. I couldn't speak. My jaw clenched so tight I thought something might snap. I didn't know how real it was until now, Janelle said. And I swear, if I'd known she was actually sleeping with someone, I would have told you. I believed her. For the first time ever, I truly did. Then she said one last thing that hit harder than anything Eli or Marla ever could. She talks like you're the weak one, but you're the only one who hasn't lied. I hung up without saying goodbye. My ears were ringing. My head was burning. But there was one thing I knew for certain now. If she wanted to feel dangerous, then she picked the wrong man to underestimate. Because from that moment on, I stopped being the man who waited, and I started being the man who watched her fall. 3 days after my call with Janelle, I sent Marla a message. Not angry, not bitter, just unsettlingly calm. Check your inbox. That's it. No explanation. No context. Just those 3 words. She read it within seconds. I imagined her in the kitchen, maybe sipping coffee, thinking the worst was over. Maybe she thought I'd cool off and come crawling back, muttering apologies for snooping through her laptop like I was the one who wrecked the marriage. I didn't even need to be there to know what happened next. Because at that exact moment, she was opening an anonymous email account I created the night before. In it, screenshots, a full PDF of her messages with Eli, and not just the flirty ones. I had everything. The hotel booking receipts, the text threads she deleted on her end, but forgot I had backed up from our old shared iCloud. Even timestamps of when she used her lunch break to visit his apartment, while I was picking up groceries and trying to cook for her like an idiot. 10 minutes later, she called me. I let it ring out. She called again. I declined it. Then the text started. Dean, what is this? Where did you get that? Why are you doing this? We can fix this. Please don't make this worse. That last one made me laugh. Make it worse? I wasn't even close to the bottom yet. By evening, she showed up at my motel. I watched her from behind the curtain as she stood by the front door, hair messy, eyes frantic, pacing like she wasn't sure whether to knock or scream. She finally left after 15 minutes. I didn't move. I wanted her to feel exactly what I'd felt for months. Ignored, invisible, left in the dark while someone else rewrote the truth. The next day, Janelle texted me again. She's spiraling. Cried at brunch. Said she thinks someone's blackmailing her. I replied simply, she should be more careful about who she betrays. But the real turning point came that afternoon. A woman I didn't recognize called me. Her voice was cold, deliberate, and shaking slightly under the surface. Is this Dean Benton? Yes. Who's this? My name is Alina Baldwin, she said. I'm Eli's wife. I froze. She didn't wait for me to speak. She just kept going. I found your number in an email forwarded to me anonymously, with everything. And I need you to know, you're not alone in this. I sat down hard. Alina told me she had no idea about Marla. She suspected Eli was cheating. There were signs, but she never imagined he'd target someone else's wife. She thought she was losing her mind. She said she blamed herself. Until the files arrived. I told her I didn't send anything to her. And I didn't. Not directly. But then it hit me. Bryce. This wasn't just about revenge for him. This was personal. Alina asked me one last question before she hung up. Did she know he was married? I thought about it. About the messages. The way Marla flirted recklessly but never once asked real questions about Eli's life. She didn't want to know. So I answered truthfully. She knew enough. She just didn't care. And neither did I anymore. Because by the time that call ended, Eli's wife was already planning to burn his life to the ground. And Marla? She was still trying to call it a coincidence. It started with a voicemail. I hadn't spoken to Marla since the night she stood outside my motel, but she kept trying. I never answered, but I listened. And this time, her voice cracked in a way I'd never heard before. Dean, please. Something's going on. I think Eli's wife found out. There's stuff online. I don't know who's sending it, but people are asking questions at work. My boss called me into his office. I need to talk to you. Please. I'm scared. She was unraveling. Not because she felt guilty. No, I'd stopped waiting for that fantasy a long time ago. She was scared because the walls were finally closing in. And the best part? I hadn't even touched her career. Not yet. But the truth had a way of leaking through cracks people thought they'd sealed shut. I found out later that Alina, Eli's wife, had sent an anonymous tip to Marla's company. Not with gossip. With hard proof. Screenshots, travel records, company phone logs. The kind of stuff HR departments don't sweep under the rug, especially when your job involves client trust and data handling. By Friday, Marla had been placed on administrative leave pending review. She didn't see it coming. She thought she could manage the scandal, keep it personal. But she forgot that when you build your identity on control and illusion, all it takes is one loose thread. Janelle texted me that afternoon, again. She lost it at brunch. Told everyone she was being sabotaged. Said Eli ghosted her. She's barely holding it together. I almost felt sorry for her. Almost. But that's when things shifted again. Because around 6 p.m. that evening, someone slipped an envelope under my motel door. No name. No return address. Just a plain white envelope, sealed. I opened it slowly, hands shaking more than I'd like to admit. Inside, photos. Not of Marla. Not of Eli. Of me. Me outside the motel. Me getting coffee. Me meeting Bryce at that cafe. And one final photo. Me holding the manila envelope Bryce gave me, taken from across the street. I stared at it for a long time. That same feeling of dread I had the night she wore the red dress came rushing back. Except this time, it wasn't sadness. It was something sharper. Someone was watching me now. My phone buzzed seconds later. No name. Just a number I didn't recognize. The message said, "You wanted to play games. Now you're in one." I don't know how long I stood there, frozen. My mind kept flashing back to everything. The emails, the calls, the revenge I thought I was controlling. But this wasn't mine anymore. Something bigger was moving now, and I was in its shadow. I thought I had power. I thought I was 3 steps ahead. But someone else had just entered the game. Someone who didn't care about my healing or her downfall. And they were playing for keeps. The photos, the message. I didn't sleep that night. My mind spun with 1,000 paranoid thoughts. Who took those pictures? Was it Eli? Was it Marla? Was someone trying to turn the tables on me? Make me the villain of the story I didn't ask to be a part of? But by sunrise, I realized something that shifted everything. I wasn't afraid. I was tired, yes. Raw, exposed, and still carrying the weight of a marriage I didn't even recognize anymore. But afraid? No. Because whoever was behind the photos, whatever they wanted to threaten me with, they were too late. I'd already lost everything I was afraid of losing. And I was still standing. I left the motel that morning. Packed everything. Cleared out. I didn't tell anyone where I was going. Not Marla. Not Janelle. Not even Bryce. I drove 4 hours north to a quiet town by the coast where no one knew my name. I found a room above a small bookstore and paid a month in advance. No drama. No noise. Just the sound of the ocean and the pages of paperbacks turning in my hands. And for the first time in years, I breathed. Days passed. Then a week. The text stopped. The noise faded. The world didn't end. It healed. 2 weeks in, I got a letter forwarded from the motel. No envelope. Just folded notebook paper with familiar handwriting. It was from Marla. She didn't beg. She didn't blame. She wrote 5 sentences. I know you don't owe me anything, but I wanted you to know Eli's gone. His wife exposed everything. He left the state. I lost my job. I lost most of my friends. I guess this is what it looks like when the truth finally wins. If you ever want to talk, I'll answer. If not, I understand. No, I love you. No, I'm sorry. Just the aftermath of the mess she made. I didn't write back. Not because I hated her, I didn't. Not even because I wanted revenge. I'd had enough of that. I stayed quiet because I was finally at peace. Because sometimes, walking away is the loudest thing you can do. And I needed that silence more than I ever needed her approval. Fast forward 6 months. I work at that bookstore now. The owner's an older woman named May who drinks too much tea and talks to her plants. It's nothing fancy, but it's honest. And one rainy afternoon, a woman walked in with messy curls, glasses, and a smile that looked like it had been earned the hard way. Her name was Claire. She asked if we sold secondhand poetry. I showed her a few shelves. She came back the next day. Then again. And again. We didn't rush anything. We didn't pretend we were perfect. We just talked about books and trust and what it means to be seen without having to beg for it. And one evening, as the sun slipped behind the sea, I told her everything. About Marla. About Eli. About the emails, the ring, the betrayal. She didn't flinch. She just reached across the table, took my hand, and said, "You're not broken. You just had to survive someone who didn't know how to love you right." That was it. That was the first time I felt like I hadn't lost. Like maybe all of it. The betrayal, the silence, The collapse was just the price of finding something real. So if Marla ever wonders what became of me, she can know this. I didn't just move on. I moved forward. And I finally stopped waiting for someone to come home. Because I already am home.